BIONICLE, Journey's End. Written by Greg Farshidi. Recording by Infinite Inspiration Zero. Chapter 3. Ranu, elder of the city, looked at Matanui as if his guest had just transformed into a sand bat. "Ridiculous. Insane. Impossible," he said, his voice rising. "How could you even ask such a thing?" "Well, you couldn't expect an enthusiastic yes," Matanui said to himself. "You're not just asking a lot of these people, you're asking everything of them." Akar, Kina, and Gresh shifted uncomfortably behind their friend. Matanui had explained what he needed and why, but even to them it sounded bizarre, if not mad. But their faith in their friend outweighed their doubts. If Matanui said he had to do this, then they would help in any way they could. Ranu looked at the three Glatorian in disbelief. "You stand with him. Don't tell me you support this lunacy." "We know how it sounds, believe me," answered Akar. "Still, Matanui has earned the right to be heard, hasn't he? Without him, we would all be slaves to the scrawl." "I don't expect you to just take my word, Ranu," said Matanui. "Let me show you what I'm talking about. Please." Ranu wanted to snap, "No!" and throw these maniacs out of his chamber. If Matanui was telling the truth, he didn't really want to know it, because the consequences to the Agori could be catastrophic. Yet if there were facts he was refusing to face, where would his honor be then? Akar was right. They all owed Matanui more than they could repay. "Very well," the elder said. "We'll go now, but I make no promises." "I don't ask for any," Matanui assured him. Less than an hour later, they were standing on the slope of a peak, looking down upon the city. Not long ago, the tribes of Bara Magna had lived in individual villages, built around massive metallic structures that dated from ancient times. After the war with the Skrull, it became obvious that the best way for the Agori to defend themselves from future threats would be to unite their villages into one giant. With enormous effort, they dragged the huge structures across the desert and linked them together. Matanui, Gresh, Barracks, Kina, and Akar were standing at this very spot when the pieces came together. In shock, they saw that the shelters when assembled formed not just a city, but a body. A giant, robotic body. Matanui couldn't help but see the resemblance between it and the body that had once been his. Ranu had heard all the rumors about what the city looked like, most of them coming from Barracks. He had been too busy setting up a new government for the Agori and arranging defenses against bone hunters and Voroks to worry about it. Now that he saw it, he couldn't deny what it appeared to be. "Interesting," Ranu said, as he looked down at his city. "Perhaps it was something the great beings built, or tried to, ages ago. But what of it?" "You're right. They did create it," Matanui replied. Even having seen it before, the image of the robot body stretched out across the sand still shook him. But something went wrong. It exploded, raining parts all over the desert, and they stayed scattered until the Agori brought them together again. "You haven't answered my question," Ranu said. "So it's a failed experiment. It's also our home and our only protection against our enemies. What does it have to do with you?" Matanui pointed down at the city. "I guess you could say it's my ancestor. I once had a body much like that, before I came here, and if I am going to get it back again, I need to borrow that one." Ranu glared at Matanui, his eyes as hard as shards of volcanic rock. "We're done here," he said. Without another word, he began the trek back down the mountain. That night, Matanui sat around a fire with Akar and Gresh. The mood was somber. "Are you sure you have to do this?" asked Gresh. "There's no other way?" Matanui never took his eyes from the flames. I've told you about my universe and my people, how I failed them, how my enemy, Makuta, seized control of it. But there's one thing I left out. What do you mean? Asked Akar. He had never heard this tone in Matanui's voice before. It worried him. One universe won't be enough for him, said Matanui. Makuta is hungry. He's waited tens of thousands of years for the power he has now. And now that he has it... His voice trailed off. We thought the Skrull couldn't be beaten, Akar reminded him. You showed us different. Whatever force this Makuta commands, however big his army, he can't be invulnerable. Matanui abruptly rose and stalked off from the fire. You don't understand. The power at his fingertips. It's the power I used to wield. I know what it can do. He could crush us all under an armored heel and never notice, or sweep the entire city away with a gesture. He turned back to Akar, a fierce intensity in his eyes. Makuta could destroy this planet before any of us could raise a sword against him. Believe me. Gresh's eyes widened. He looked at Matanui as if he had never seen him before. You mean you... Matanui nodded. His voice dropped to a whisper. Yes, Gresh. Before I came to Bara Magna, I could do all that, and more. And did you? Asked Akar. No, replied Matanui. That wasn't why I was created. The only sound then was the crackling of the fire. After a few moments, Akar walked up to Matanui and placed a hand on his shoulder. Hey, you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Anything I can do, just say the word. Akar turned to Gresh. How about you, kid? Gresh looked Matanui right in the eyes. I've fought for the people here. All the Glatorian have. And long before you ever got here, Matanui, we thought you were one of us, or at least something close. Gresh! Akar snapped. It's all right, said Matanui. Let him have his say. I'll have my say, all right, said Gresh. Now you tell us you were some kind of... I don't know what. With more power in one finger than every warrior on this world put together. And you say you want the city, that robot body. Why? So you can have that power again? We didn't overthrow the Skrull so some armored giant could rule over us. That's enough, said Akar. Matanui took his sword and offered it, hilt first, to Gresh. When he spoke, there was no anger in his voice, but an almost frightening calm. I'm not here to rule anyone. I'm trying to save your people and mine. But if you can't believe that, my friend, then take my weapon and lock me in a cell. I won't fight you. Gresh hesitated. Take it, Matanui repeated. Again, Gresh made no move to do so. Matanui finally put the sword back in its sheath. Then help me, he said to Gresh, or else get out of my way. Not far away, Ranu sat in his chamber, deep in thought. He had half expected this day to come ever since the villages had been united. After all, he knew far more about the great being's creations than anyone else suspected. Once, Bara Magna had been part of a larger world called Spherus Magna. Then came the Core War, a global conflict that resulted in the shattering of the planet. During the dark days of that war, Ranu had briefly served the great beings as they attempted to stop the fighting. It was during that time he saw firsthand something the great beings were constructing. It was a massive robot with the power to fly into space. At first, he thought that perhaps it was intended to carry all the Agori away to safety. When it turned out that wasn't the case, he rejected it as just one more idle experiment by rulers who had lost touch with those they ruled. In the struggle for survival after the shattering, he had forgotten all about it. Then, Matanui arrived. He began to hear tales about his exile from another universe, his knowledge of the great beings, and plans he had uncovered for a huge robot. Kina said he seemed to recognize them, and more, to have some connection to them. That was when Ranu began to suspect there was more to this visitor than there at first seemed to be. Now he knew. The universe Motunui had been exiled from was the body the great beings had built. He didn't know how or why such a thing could have happened, but then he never understood the great being's science in the first place. Now, Motunui wanted a new body to replace his old one, even if that body was the city of the Agori. Could he say no? After all, without Motunui, there would be no city. The Skrull would have enslaved all the Agori, slain all the Glatorian, and hold Bara Magna in an iron grip. He couldn't deny it was Motunui's heroism and inspiration that saved his people. Yet, how could he say yes? With no city, the Agori would be little better than Foroks or bone hunters, forced to survive in the harsh desert with little protection. And all for what? Motunui acted like this was a matter of life or death, but never specified whose life and whose death he was concerned about. Ranu had consulted the other Agori leaders and some of the other Glatorian. They had all agreed that they would leave the decision up to him, confident he would choose the wisest course. The Agori rose to leave. He would have to talk to Motunui. He owed the warrior that much, and he would have to be prepared for whatever might happen if he told Motunui no. Ranu found Akar and Gresh just outside the city, near the ashes of a fire. They said Motunui had gone off on his own into the desert. Akar offered to accompany the Agori leader if he was going to seek Motunui out, but Ranu said no. Torch in hand, he followed Motunui's tracks into the dunes. He found the object of his search sitting on a rock, staring up at the stars. Ranu decided to waste no time. I know who and what you are. At least, I think I do. Motunui glanced down at the sand, then at Ranu. Then you should know that I was created for a reason. I have a destiny to fulfill, and to do that, I know what you need, Ranu said. The Agori need it too. Why are you more important than they are? Ranu, when I came here, I didn't know where I was or why, Motunui answered, his voice low. Now I have my answers. I know I am asking a lot of you, of all of you, but you have to believe me. I'm here to help. Give me the tools to let me do that. From what you've said, your own people believed in you, and it didn't get them very far, said Ranu. Motunui started to reply. Then he stiffened, his gaze locked on the stars again. He's coming. Who? Asked Ranu, annoyed. Don't think you can trick me. It's no trick, said Motunui. He caught himself before saying something that might insult the respected leader. Can't you see? Makuta has found me, and he's coming here. I can sense it. I lived in the body he wears for 100,000 years. I can feel its approach, Ranu. I'm the only one with a prayer of stopping him. You have to grant my request before it's too late. Ranu had never felt the burden of leadership rest quite as heavy on his shoulders as it did right now. It would be easy to dismiss Motunui as lying or insane and forget the whole thing. The problem was, he knew it would be an injustice. Motunui wasn't crazy, or being deceitful, he realized. The warrior was genuinely afraid for himself and Bara Magna, and if a being who faced down an entire Skrull legion on its own felt fear, there had to be a good reason for it. He almost could not believe the words that next came out of his mouth. He wasn't aware of making the decision. But once it was made, he knew that no other decision had been possible. Very well, said Ranu. I am putting the survival of my people into your hands, Motunui. I will give you what you ask, but know this. Betray us, and no suit of armor will protect you from my revenge. That artificial body existed as shattered parts once before, and it can do so again." Before Matanui could say thank you, Ranu turned and walked back toward the city. "We will begin the evacuation at dawn," the Agori leader said over his shoulder. "Be ready." "I have been ready for this since the moment I arrived here," thought Matanui. "But the bigger question is, am I ready for Makuta?" End of chapter 3.